about y'all quiet down? Can you all hear me? I could stand in front here and just do the teacher voice. You'd probably be able to hear me anyway. So I am Kara Brown. I'm a professor here at Sinclair. I got my nice little button here. And I am one of the Sinclair organizers for this event. I'm part of the committee that organizes Transgender Day of Remembrance for the region each year. And Sinclair does it along with the LGBT Center, Have a Gay Day, Gatlin Dane Group, and probably things that I'm forgetting, PFLAG. It's all in the brochures or the programs that you guys got. Please, please tell them thank you if you see people who represent those groups. They are critical for us doing good things like this. So welcome to Sinclair. This is the biggest event that we've done for this so far. So thank you for being here. This is really cool. Yeah. So we are going to be following a pretty standard program that we do for this, where I will introduce our MC here in a moment and turn it over to him. I just wanted to make sure you all felt welcomed here at Sinclair. I did say I would embarrass Michael Carter. Where did Michael Carter go? He's over there, right there. Michael Carter is our Chief Diversity Officer, and he has been instrumental in helping me get this together and supporting us. And it is so amazing that Sinclair supports this event and supports Right Signal and supports our SAGE committee on campus. We have great support for the LGBTQIA+ community here on campus, and it is just makes me so proud that we have people like Michael to be here for us. So I think that's all I had. I am going to be handing it off to Devin, who is our Master of Ceremonies and general person of awesomeness, that will be welcoming our speakers and leading our ceremony here. So thank you, and enjoy yourselves, remember, and have a good time.
Thanks, Kara. See, I have everything written down so I don't forget anything. We appreciate you opening and welcoming all the individuals here at Sinclair to your campus one more time. I do want to thank Sinclair College Diversity Office, Bright Signal Alliance, Premier Health, the Ruby Girls, Out Here Dayton Film Festival, Synchrony, Dayton PFLAG, Have a Gay Day, the Greater Dayton LGBT Center, the Gatlin Dane Group, DATV for coming and filming and broadcasting tonight as well. Thank you for sponsoring and making this event happen tonight. Again, my name is Devin Dame, and I am your host tonight, and I go by he, him pronouns, just in case anybody forgot. Nothing would have been possible tonight without the committee that has pulled everything together. I am sure that I speak for the community as a whole when I say a big thank you so much to Randy, Gage, Michael, Kara, Andy, Bobby Brooke, Melinda, Haley, and River for all the time and care that you have put forth to make tonight happen. We often say that in the past that we have provided a safe space for people. However, there just doesn't seem like such a thing anymore as a safe space, especially considering that 26% of the individuals murdered this last year, the murders occurred in their own home. So while there may be no safe spaces, there are brave spaces. Just as there is no courage without fear, there can be no visibility, community, or unity without bravery. The truth is that we all bring our individual and collective brokenness to the table. We are all courageous, just gathering at the table together. A place you are welcome to share or just listen, but above all, a place to just be yourself. Through our bravery, we lift up each other, we encourage each other, we provide comfort, and celebrate one another for who we are. Therefore, collectively, we are providing a brave space for each other, and this is a brave space tonight. Tonight we do gather to remember, mourn, grieve, and honor the beautiful lives that was lost this year due to fear and hatred through the acts of anti-transgender violence. To pay our respects for the transgender lives that have been reported, taken within this last year, far beyond their time, murdered. We gather to remember them, to celebrate them, and to show that their lives were not lost in vain because they mattered. I know that we will rise above this, for one day there will be no hate, no fear, only kindness and love. Humanity has had a few rough years, to say the least. It felt as if anxiety and fear took over on so many aspects of our lives, that so many of us are still searching for the new normal, whatever that is. Each of us here tonight are fighting battles that no one else knows. And I want each of you to know that you're not alone. Please know that you matter. No one knows what the future holds. However, it is much, much brighter with each of you in it. Now, we have some extraordinary humans that have joined us tonight to share their stories. Our first speaker has mentored women in and out of the Columbus transgender community, was on the board of directors for GLAD, and was on the board for Bravo. She currently sits on the Columbus Roundtable of the local LGBT leaders. She's a board member of the Legacy Fund of the Columbus Foundation, and a board member of Grace, a trans advocacy organization. A third-generation firefighter, EMTB, with the Columbus Division of Fire, she came out as transgender in 2008. Transitioning on the job, she retired in 2016 with the rank of captain. Please help me welcome Captain Lana Moore.
Thank you. Greetings, fellow humans. Thank you for having me. It's a privilege and an honor to be in this room with all of you here tonight as we pay our respects and honor our fallen fellow human beings who very tragically are no longer with us. They are not with us here physically tonight, but they are with us spiritually and emotionally. They remain in our hearts
and we won't forget them. A special thank you to all the allies in the room. Thank you for standing with us. We are a community, and we need our greater community, our friends, our family, our colleagues, not so much to protect us, but to support us. And by the way, you don't have to know or love a trans person in order to be an ally. Spread the word. Allies are essential. Being trans is not a big deal, or at least it shouldn't be a big deal. Trans identities are part of the human condition, present throughout history and across our planet, as natural as the moon and stars. And yet, there are those who continually try to make our lives a big deal. I'd like to briefly share my story of coming out to the fire chief in Columbus and how being trans doesn't have to be treated as a big deal. This was a pivotal moment for me, not only in my life, but also in my career. I was scared, and all I wanted to do was survive. I'll never forget the chief's demeanor. He was confident and friendly. I could tell that he was picking up on my dire sense of emergency by the look of desperation in my face. I don't have time to recall every detail of that meeting, but I will relay 3 main points. Number 1, Chief Pettis said to me, "I support you, but I can't treat you differently than anyone else. No special treatment." Fair enough. I guess we're doing pretty good so far. Number 2, I will not tolerate any harassment. Well, that's good. I just might make it. Number 3, the third and final point he made, which lit a fire of inspiration within me. Near the end of our meeting, Chief Pettis looked at me in the eye and smiled when he said, "I want you to be a success story." Wow. Friends, I was not expecting that. Up until that very moment, my thoughts were centered on merely surviving and getting through it somehow so that I could continue with my career and provide for my family. Chief Pettis offered me so much more. Knowing that the chief was personally invested in my success meant the world to me, because I knew that this man, who himself was a great success story, being the first African-American fire chief in the City of Columbus Division of Fire. He knew firsthand what that entailed. He knew what it was like to have your talents as a fire officer unfairly judged and scrutinized because of something that had absolutely nothing to do with your ability to perform effectively as a public servant. At that very moment, the possibility was created for me to do so much more than merely survive. That I too could be a success story. And to all my trans siblings here in the room and beyond, I wish for you that very same possibility, to be a success story. I extend that to all our allies as well. Allies are essential, and every human being deserves the chance to succeed. I'm happy to report that I was able to continue in my career as a fire captain for another 7 years after I transitioned until March of 2016. Around that time, there were a few fire stations in some level of turmoil. One of them had even made the news. Yet the fire station with the transgender fire captain was not one of those. I am proud to say that my house was running like a smoothly fine-tuned engine. All 3 units were in harmony, and we had passed our annual house inspection with flying colors. One assistant chief present had turned to me to say, "Lana, as long as I've been doing this, I've never seen an engine house look so good." As my retirement date approached, my crews were telling me, "Kat, we don't want you to go." I'd call that a success story, but I can't take full credit. After sharing this story with a friend a few years ago, she said to me, "Lana, that is a testament to the people you attracted at Station 19. And I wholeheartedly agree. What we accomplished at that firehouse was a team effort. I couldn't have done it without their allyship and without the allied leadership from the top levels of city management down through the ranks. My fire family stood with me. Now that I'm 7 years into retirement, and as I consider the current levels of anti-trans sentiments in our society, I sometimes look back and wonder, how in the world did we do that? I think one of the main takeaways from my workplace transition and how it went relatively smoothly and what worked for us is that since we didn't make my being trans a big deal, it ended up not being such a big deal. Oh, there were some who didn't like it and tried to make it into a big deal. But I'm told those people didn't get much traction, and it was shame on them, not shame on me. Currently, there are many state legislatures across this country attempting to make trans lives impossible by attempting to make us into a big deal for political gain. Ohio is certainly one of those. They are engaging in outdated tactics of negative stereotyping and scapegoating to dehumanize and further marginalize trans people. This puts us all in danger when public policy codifies specific segments of our society as fair game. History is clear on where this dark road leads. Recent elections are hopefully showing them that this is not a winning strategy. Most Ohioans are not on board for the removal of rights and the legislative harassment and targeting of their fellow citizens. I have recently become involved with a new national trans advocacy organization called GRACE. That's an acronym for Gender Research Advisory Council in Education. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan advocacy organization which promotes equality, dignity, and respect for transgender individuals while advocating for and empowering America's transgender community. We have been assembling a professional team of experts from fields including, but not limited to, researchers, analysts, and strategists. We are conducting research and collecting data to dispel the recent onslaught of destructive anti-trans propaganda. Over the next couple weeks, we will be setting up meetings with local trans advocacy organizations right here in Ohio to strategize on how we can partner together and enhance their ongoing efforts with the work that they are already doing. Help is on the way. Speaking of grace, I was drawn towards this new organization in part because I like the name. Generally speaking, as I look around at the world these days, I feel that we could all use more grace. I know for my part, I am trying to be more intentional about giving grace because I don't feel I can ask for something that I'm not willing to give. I know that many of us are angry and we're scared. And it's easy to want to lash out and return hostility, to fight fire with fire, so to speak. But even in the fire service, that is rarely a tactic that is warranted. Most of the time, we fight fire with water. We cool it down, we take away its fuel. Rather than engage in an escalation of hostility, we take the big deal and we turn it into a no deal. A dear friend of mine who is a fellow trans first responder, Tyson Crenshaw, once told me that one of his tenets is that he will not do to others what he complains is being done to him. I like that. I spoke earlier about my fire family. I consider all of you my trans family. Growing up in the 60s and 70s, I thought I was all alone in the world. I saw that loneliness as a curse for people like me. What I would later learn in life is that there is a blessing that comes with being trans, and that is all of you. We are kindred spirits, and I have found that our greatest gift is each other. To my young friends who will be speaking later, I want you to know that it brings me great joy to see you living your lives authentically, and that you didn't have to wait so long in isolation as many of my generation had to do. I can't sit by and let them take that away from you without speaking up. You are what drives my advocacy efforts. So as we gather today in remembrance of our trans brothers, sisters, and siblings who have so tragically been taken from us, I suggest that we can honor them by remaining united in our celebration of diversity. And that goes for our diversity of sensibilities as well as our diversity of perspective. We come in all shapes, sizes, colors, backgrounds, and generations. We should share our grace with one another as fellow human beings, fostering that curiosity of empathy that brings compassion. In doing so, we lead by example as we demonstrate to other communities how this is done. At a time when they are trying to dehumanize us, we must hold on to our humanity. We must not give it away. Now is the time to direct our attention and focus away from the little things that divide us and towards that one big thing that brings us all together, our humanity. Being trans is not a big deal. At the end of the day, we are all, each and every one of us, only human. Thank you.
Thank you, Lana. That is so true. Give a little grace, right? Kill him with kindness. That's what my mom used to say. Kill him with kindness, honey. Kill him with kindness. She said something that hits home for me. All of you that are here, whether you're in the community, whether you're an ally, it means so much to all of us that are within the community to be able to look around and know that we aren't alone and that we have people that accept us for who we are. And for that, thank you. Our next speaker is a young transgender person. She first testified for the LGBTQIA plus protections at the age of 9. She went up in front of legislators at that age. And over the last 6 years, she has educated not only the legislatures, but the teachers, the superintendents, some doctors, and over 350 Girl Scout leaders. I share her mentality when I say education is a huge part of advocacy. It's true. We have an education problem. We fear, therefore, we don't like it. But if you learn that we are human, just like they are, and you show them the love that we have in our hearts, I guarantee you they can't hate you. Education. With education, we will thrive. But here to tell you more about her and what she's done and a little bit of her story, please help me welcome Sean Miller.
I'd like to start by thanking Lana again. Lana was the first transgender adult I ever met, and I feel so grateful that as I grew, I got to look up to her bravery, confidence, and kindness. Hello, my name is Sean, and I'm honored to be here with you tonight to celebrate the lives and mourn the losses of our transgender siblings. Since I could talk, I was telling my parents that I was a girl. I spent my years as an infant dancing around my house wearing princess dresses. And though I was very blessed and happy, the urge to be who I was inside never left me. When I was 6 years old, I moved to Ohio and made my social transition. I had never been happier than when I got to be my true self. But as I grew as a young transgender girl, I learned about the harsh world I was living in as a queer person in America. I have a distinct memory of watching the news one morning and seeing a report on the transgender suicide rates. I felt my stomach sink as I realized that people like me were treated with such lack of dignity and grace. Kids my age were taking their own lives because of the environment around them, from unsupportive parents to bullying at school. As a kid, I was hyper aware that it was oftentimes dangerous for me to talk about being trans. I was happy being a girl, but sometimes I still felt trapped, having to hide my true identity in public as a transgender girl. Soon I had to swallow that it wasn't just the citizens of my country who were trying to harm or even eradicate my people, but the government that swore to protect me. I watched as the bathroom bill passed in North Carolina, preventing transgender people from using the bathrooms that aligned with their gender. I saw the 45th president kick out and prevent our brave transgender brothers and sisters from serving our country. And every year, I watched in horror as people in our community were slaughtered by the hands of hate. Specifically, our Black and brown sisters and siblings. According to HRC statistics, in 2022, 49 transgender people, mostly Black transgender women, were killed in America. That means that approximately a transgender person was killed every week. I felt so powerless against the fires that were burning my world down all around me. I quickly learned that I had to stand up for myself and my community. I know I couldn't let the hard work and sacrifices of so many go to waste. I started to volunteer for local campaigns for politicians that I cared for. I started going to Columbus to meet with legislatures on anti or positive queer bills. And I testified at the State House twice for LGBTQ protections. In spite of all the hate, progress is still being made. In the most recent election, Ohio elected more than 20 LGBTQ candidates, from school boards to mayors. Ooh. And I'm incredibly lucky and grateful to have grown up in a world with people like Lana Moore and Amy Schneider to look up to. It sometimes feels helpless, but there's a lot we can do. You can call your legislatures, educate yourself on local and state laws, and please, please go out and vote. Today, as we honor the lives of those we've lost, we can never let their sacrifices go to waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Sorry, I wasn't ready. She said thank you, and I was like, oh, crap, here I go. Here I am, it's fine. Somebody's like, it's 7:01, are we gonna start? I'm like, I don't know, they can't start without me, it's fine. Shout out to all the parents in the house. And let me tell you something, if you're not on good terms with your parents right now, that doesn't mean that it won't change. I promise. It can change, because it changed for me. So just don't ever give up hope. Speaking about pretty awesome parents, the next young adult that we have has a pretty awesome mom. She's I really look up to her, and I really enjoy the environment that she is letting her kids grow up in, and I just enjoy the whole family for sure. But he is a 17-year-old high school senior, and he's always impressed me with his grace, his maturity, and his kindness. So please help me welcome Nico.
Okay. Hello. Is this all right? Okay. I wanted to first off start by thanking all of you for being here. I'm grateful for all of you to show up and give your support. Tonight, we are here to graciously honor our fellow transgender siblings whose lives were lost to senseless violence. This violence stemmed from hatred and from fear. And that was something I never understood. For as long as I can remember, when I was much younger, my biggest wish was for everyone to be happy. Whether I was wishing for something for Christmas, blowing out a little wishing flower, blowing out my candles, I wanted everyone to be happy. And as I've grown older, I realize that may not be as obtainable, as everyone has something to complain about. Let's see. And growing up transgender with access to the internet, this definitely rings true, as you either get called or see others get called many rude things, such as a natural, freak, against God, and 41%. 41%. Some of you may know what that means, but for those of you that don't, that is the amount of transgender individuals that either attempt or die by suicide, and I could have been one of them. I always knew that I was LGBT. By 4th or 5th grade, I realized I liked both boys and girls. However, this wasn't an issue to my mother. She loved me regardless. However, as puberty set in, I felt this grappling sense of unhappiness, of fear, like being a stranger inside of my own body. I struggled to find the right words to describe what this meant, and it was initially overwhelming. So I looked to the internet to hopefully give me some sort of answer. Transgender? Oh, I am transgender. That makes a lot of sense. That explains how I've been feeling this entire time. I decided to experiment with different labels, and I ended up cutting off all of my hair by the time I was 13. It was my first haircut. It was extremely emotional, and I had never experienced such joy and relief as when I heard the buzz of the clippers whirring around my ears. It was fantastic. And then I started going by a different name at school, Nico. I was just trying around different things to see what would stick, and ended up sticking. My friends were very supportive, as most of them were also LGBT. But soon, others began to catch on. I had been going to the same school district since kindergarten, so being labeled a trans one wasn't very exciting. I encountered strange looks and even stranger questions. The pressure to conform to societal norms intensified, fueled by the comparisons I saw online. And speaking of the internet, if a creator is trans, do not look in their comment section. It is a horrible and harsh reality check of the world that we are living in currently. Hearing more and more hateful words as I was trying to develop and grow into myself was not good for my development. I finally started to feel like I had somewhere to belong, some words to describe who I really was, and getting told that those words were disgusting, or evil, or incorrect. I just couldn't bear the pain. And by this time, I hadn't come out to my mother yet either. Having been her only daughter, I felt I had failed her by being her son. All she ever wanted was a daughter, but I couldn't do that. So by 8th grade, I made an attempt, and that landed me in the hospital. This led to me receiving therapy to understand these emotions and combat them. Now being in my senior year of high school, I won't lie, I still get strange looks. But I realize some people are just not worth listening to, at all. If they can... If they cannot wrap their head around the idea that I am different but still worthy of basic human empathy and compassion, their words mean nothing to me. This doesn't mean it doesn't bother me at times, but the pain of not accepting who I am is not as painful as pushing myself back into the closet and pretending to be someone that I am not. Despite my journey not being over, I take pride in how far I've come. I will continue to transition and do what is best for me, and I try to pay no mind to what people say. And that leads me to this. Remember now, as we are mourning the death of many, recognize that number may not be accurate, as some did not have the ability to fully present as themselves in any place other than their own bedroom, and some did, but were, however, sadly misrepresented by the media. Even in death, they could not find that peace. But I hope they know that we see them when others did not. We hear them when they hardly had the voice to speak. And we love them when the world did not show them the kindness they needed. Thank you again for showing up to the event and giving me the ability to share this speech.
Thank you, Nico. Good job. I'm just proud of him, so. I'm proud of you too, I just don't know you very much. We just met, it's fine. Listen, anybody that knows me, if you've met me, and I'm hard to forget, I'm really sorry. More ways than one. But if you know me and you've met me, I can almost guarantee you that I love watching and learning and getting to know you guys, and I am proud of a lot of people, and I get the distinct privilege of having somebody come out to me or to us and watch them grow into the individuals that they really are, and allow themselves to live authentically, and I think it's pretty awesome. And I thank you all for allowing me to be there as well. However, according to the tgeu.org, over the past year, 321 trans and gender diverse people were reported murdered. And that's globally. 321. And again, like Nico said, that's just the ones that were reported. We know there are more. 94 of them 94% of them were trans women or femmes. 80% were black, brown, or racialized. 48% of them were sex workers. 45% of them were migrants or refugees in Europe. And 26% of them were murdered in their own residence. Latin America and the Caribbean reported 236 cases. That's the highest number of murders out of all of the regions. Belgium and Slovakia were among the countries to report murders for the very first time this year. There are 44 individuals that were murdered here in the United States. For each amazing human, we will say their name and light a candle in their honor tonight. So if I could have all the volunteers that will be reading names, please come forward, and the volunteers that will be lighting the candles.
Jasmine Star Mack, Casey Johnson, Unique Banks, Sashay Amani Tuitaho, Maria Hosea Rivera, Kashay Henderson, Tortugita,
Tessiah Woodland, Ashley Burton, Coco Dadal, Banco Brown, Asia Davis, Chanel Ortiz, Jacob Williamson,
Camden Ryder, Devani Sheree Johnson, Thomas Tom Robertson, Yoko, Louise Angel Diaz Castro, China Long, Sherilyn Marjorie,
Ani Johnson, Dominic Dupree, Lisa Love, London Price, Mary Mora, Dee Dee Hall, Day Rodas,
Kimbella Kimball, Tui Davis, Jimmy J. Lee, Tiffany Banks, Emma Borhanian, Daniel Davis Aston, Kelly Loving,
Diamond Jackson McDonald, Destiny Howard, Marquise MJ Jackson, Kaylee Love Light, Lakendra Andrews, Ome Gandhi, Lovely Page,
Alexa Andreevna Sokova, Briasia Banks.
Obviously, we didn't talk about that. Sorry. I would like to take a moment of silence to honor not only the reported 321 murders, but the unreported murders within our trans and gender diverse community. They were all deprived of life far too soon. Thank you. Thank you. Within our community, I feel as if we see a lot, we hear a lot, we go through a lot. There are some very heavy things that we have to go through personally and collectively. I will tell you that it shocked me whenever I saw the names. There's more trans men this year than I've ever seen. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. Within the LGBTQIA community, we have all felt suppressed in one way or the other. I know firsthand how growing up in a Catholic family and not fitting the mold, how that feels. We suppress a lot of things, including gender identity. Our keynote speaker tonight knows all about those feelings as well. We actually graduated the same year, just from a different local Catholic high school. She's been much more successful in her career than I have been. However, I am very happy where I'm at. I know that she is too. She's one of the smartest people I've ever known. And she now stresses the importance of trans representation and shifting the focus from their sufferings to their accomplishments. She is an American software engineer and, of course, the recent Jeopardy champion. She became the first openly transgender contestant to qualify for the Tournament of Champions. She earned a spot in the Jeopardy Hall of Fame. She's also the 11th highest earning contestant of all time, again, over all of the American game shows. That's pretty impressive. I remember watching Jeopardy as a kid with my mom. I didn't know half of them. So she's pretty awesome in my book already. And she recently released a new book. I think it was her first book. It's called In the Form of a Question, which is an inspiration and bold memoir from the most successful woman ever to compete on Jeopardy. So please help me welcome Amy Schneider.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you for that welcome, and thank you for inviting me to be here with you today. I'm so glad to be spending this day with the queer community here in Dayton, the city that raised me. Wherever I've been in my life and wherever my life goes, Dayton will always be part of me, and I'm so grateful for that. And being here today on the Transgender Day of Remembrance is especially meaningful. Trans people have always been reliant on each other. We've always been a community and a family. And I'm so honored to be spending time in reflection, in solidarity, and in celebration with my trans siblings, my trans elders, and with the next generation of trans leaders that I know are here today. As I thought about what I wanted to say here today, I was struck by the many faceted meanings of remembrance. It's a simple word, but if we merely take it at face value, it can seem hollow, pointless, even dispiriting. When asked to remember the pain our community has had inflicted on us, all the lives that have been cut short by violence and hate, by prejudice, and even sheer indifference to our well-being, it's only natural to pull back, to say, I don't want to remember all that. And if that's all this day was, a day of, in a sense, rubbing our noses in the painful reality which we already live in every day, then it would be better to not have it at all. Trans people don't need any additional reasons to feel sadness and fear. But of course, I think there's much more to it than that. For one thing, this day isn't just, or even primarily, for trans people. In the struggle for trans acceptance, the struggle to stop adding names to the list of those lost to transphobic hate, trans people are and must be the leaders, the driving force, but we can't do it alone. So to those of you here today as allies, both within and outside the broader queer community, we need you. We can say the names of those we have lost, but we need you to hear them, to really hear them. Not just to hear an abstraction, a list of bad things that happened, but a list that doesn't have anything to do with you, because it does. It has to do with you in part because each of those names doesn't just represent a tragedy for a trans person, but a tragedy for all the cis people in their lives, parents, children, friends, co-workers, spouses, people who, despite not being trans themselves, have had their lives devastated by an act of anti-trans hate. But you also need to hear those names because of the responsibility you have for their deaths. And I know that's a provocative thing to say, but hear me out. Of course, the primary responsibility falls on those who actually committed these hateful acts, and their responsibility exists on an entirely different moral plane than the culpability I'm talking about here. But these attacks did not happen in isolation. They took place in a culture of indifference to the lives of trans people, of indifference to their moral worth, their right to societal protection. And again, of course, that does not excuse the people behind these attacks, not in the slightest. But they are nonetheless the inevitable result of countless smaller acts of dismissal, of rejection, of mockery. Of Jerry Springer episodes titled, and I apologize for this, "Oops, I Married a Tranny." Of a medical establishment that for decades refused trans women care unless they were passable. Of hysterical warnings about men claiming to be women in order to sneak into women's bathrooms, or of trans boys really being girls being tricked by some fad of trans contagion, by the idea that cis people who are asked to use a trans person chosen pronouns are the real victims, and just as importantly, by everybody who sees those things happen in their lives and choose to remain silent, to implicitly endorse these hateful ideas by failing to reject them. And trans people aren't free from this responsibility either. I certainly am not. In the years before my transition, I too was also silent far too often. I laughed at the jokes, the portrayals of bearded, deep-voiced men in dresses as representatives of trans people. I allowed things I disagree with to go unchallenged out of a desire to fit in with those around me. And apart from that, it's of course important to remember that for so many of the names on this list, their victimization wasn't just a result of indifference to the lives of trans people, but indifference to the lives of people of color. And as a white person, trans or not, I have to face my own responsibility in a culture of white supremacy which I did not create, but which I have benefited from and which, in countless small unnoticed ways, I have helped to maintain. So when I ask our cis allies to risk awkwardness and discomfort by pushing back against the transphobic prejudice they see around them, I also ask white people, myself included, to do the same against racist beliefs. And since those beliefs are so embedded and because they don't harm me directly, or rather because they actually benefit me, I'm not even going to see them unless I make a conscious effort to open my eyes to them. And so as we look at this list today, it's incumbent on me to notice the disproportionate racial makeup of the people on that list and to acknowledge my part in the structures that have caused that imbalance. So this day isn't simply about remembering the lives on this list. It's about using that memory as inspiration, as a reminder to do our part to stop any more names from being added. Look, I'm aware that this speech has continued to be kind of a bummer. And as I was saying at the beginning, as trans people, we're not short on reasons to be bummed out. Fortunately, there are still many other facets to what I think Remembrance is all about. The people on this list are there because of how their lives ended, but that's not what's important about them. What's important about them is who they were in life, how they lived. The tragedy is that these lives were cut short, but the flip side of that tragedy is all the amazing things that they brought into the world, and all the amazing things that will continue to be brought into the world by all the names that aren't on this list, and all the names that, together, we will keep off of that list in the future. Remembering what we've lost is a reminder of how much we have to gain. Remembrance is more than mourning, it is also celebration. Because, y'all, trans people are amazing. All of the people on this list, they were amazing. They were bright lights, people who made the world better by their existence. And I don't want to imply that this was just because they were trans. After all, the important thing about trans people is simply that we're people. And we're amazing in the same way as all people are. It's important not to let celebration become another subtle way of othering trans people. Just as we are not frightening monsters, neither are we magical angels. But I do think there's more to it than that. As we celebrate those we've lost, we do so based on the testimony of the loved ones they've left behind. And we see the full range of humanity in those testimonies. Some were big and bold, some were quiet and reserved. Some were known for their wisdom, for their sense of humor, for their commitment to their family, for their religious faith, for their service to their community, for their loyalty or sympathy or passion. But there are certain qualities, it seems to me, that show up particularly often in our trans community. Generosity, for example. London Price, whose family said she would give you the shirt off her back. Certainly that's been my experience of our community. I think almost any trans person would say the same. Ever since I first began to consciously struggle with the question of my gender identity, I have owed so much to so many trans people who have offered their support, their advice, their encouragement, without hesitation or expectation of anything in return. So many trans people have had a trans mom or dad or parent, a mentor who took them under their wing early on and guided them through transition with advice, support, encouragement, sympathy, practical tips. And beyond such singular figures, I think virtually every trans person has benefited from the kindness of trans strangers, sometimes those that they've never even met. I know a lot to random people who posted online on Twitter or Reddit, random message boards, letting me know that I was okay, showing me that a better life was possible, or simply teaching me how to walk in heels. Transition is, among other things, a frightening time, and because all trans people have shared that experience and know how much we owe to the people who helped us through it, we tend to want to pay it forward and give that same guidance and support to those who come after us. Without the generosity of the trans community, I don't know how I would have gotten through it to be standing here today. Which brings me to another quality. Annie Johnson was described by those who knew her as brave and courageous. That courage is another thing that stands out to me about our community. I said I don't know how I would have gotten through my transition without the generosity and support that I received. But the fact is, not all trans people received that support, and that was even more true in the past than it is now. When I think about the environment trans people faced decades ago, I can't imagine being able to stand up against it, to defy nearly universal ignorance and oppression, stand up in the face of it and insist on living my truth. And yet countless trans people did just that. We remember them today as well. Those who may not have lost their lives, but nonetheless sacrificed their chances of a quote-unquote normal life, who willingly made themselves outcasts in society, and then spent their lives insisting nonetheless on being included, willing to say out loud that they were real and valid, no matter how many people said otherwise. Their bravery created the conditions where today, those of us who, like myself, aren't quite so courageous, are still able to come out and free themselves from the misery of the closet. And while thankfully, a bit less courage is needed today than was the case back then, courage is still a necessity. When I came out as trans, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know about the support that I'd find. I didn't know whether anyone would accept me. And that's true for every trans person. And yet all of us, somehow, found the courage to do it anyway. And that courage enables us to not just live, but to thrive. The memory of that courage, I can say from my own experience, is incredibly empowering. When I was invited to be on Jeopardy, it was frightening to imagine appearing on national television, let alone going on national television as a trans person. But I did it anyway. Because as a trans person, if you got through transition, then you know you can do something hard. And that gives us the courage to try and to achieve things that we might never have thought possible. But I think maybe the most common quality that I see among trans people is that we're fun. Banko Brown was shy but made everyone laugh. Thomas Tom Robertson, known for their vibrantly colored hairstyles. Yoko, exceptionally joyful and extremely talented. Asia Davis, full of joy. That joy, that sense of fun, is one of the things that I think defines our community, and one of the most important things to keep in mind to counterbalance the sadness that this day of remembrance can bring. When we look at the obstacles trans people face, the violence that is inflicted on them far too often, joy isn't the first thing to come to mind. If you're not trans yourself, the idea of trans people as joyful might seem surprising. With the challenges we face, the hatred and fear we experience, the undeniable realities of our high rates of poverty and unemployment, the trans lives cut short, whether directly through violence or indirectly through the depths of despair that spring from our oppression, What have we got to be so joyful about? Well, let me tell you, so much. I kind of joke that I think everybody should get to come out as something because, well, yes, it can be scary at first. Once you get through that, it is an almost unfathomably wonderful experience. Living in the wrong gender is a burden, a shadow that touches every other aspect of your life. And for most trans people, for at least some part of their lives, it's a burden they aren't even aware of because it's always been there. They don't even know it's possible to live without it. It's as if your whole life you'd been carrying a heavy weight on your back, a weight that you didn't know was there, or maybe just believed that it was a weight that everyone else was carrying too. And so you blamed yourself for being weighed down under it when other people seemed to be managing just fine. And then one day, to find out that you can simply take that weight off, set it on the ground and leave it behind, and stand up straight for the first time in your entire life, and know that you'll never have to carry that weight ever again, it truly feels like a miracle. And it doesn't stop there. When I first transitioned, all I was trying to do was put that weight down, and that would have been more than enough to be joyful about. But what happens after that is even better. You get to find out who you truly are. Because just as you never realized you were carrying that weight, you never realized all the ways that that weight was warping you, all the aspects of yourself that you were burying beyond the simple fact of your gender, all the things that you weren't allowing yourself to do because you needed all of your energy just to keep from being crushed. And so that first miracle is followed by countless more as you stretch your limbs, stand up straight, get to know yourself, as you begin to walk tall, as you begin to run, as you begin to dance. A lifetime of self-hatred transformed into a lifetime of self-love. So how could we not be joyful? So on this day of remembrance, I ask us all to remember that generosity, that bravery, and that joy that characterizes those trans people we've lost, those who are still with us, and those who are still yet to come. To remember that while we have a long way to go, we have also already come so far. Yes, the trans community still faces a lot of opposition. You certainly don't need me to tell you that here in Ohio. But we need to see the threats that we face in context. There is an organized movement trying to drive trans people back into the shadows. And today we remember the lives which that movement has tragically cut short. But we also remember the progress that we've made. We remember the generosity the trans community has exhibited in support of each other, the bravery we've shown in standing up to hatred, and the joy that our liberation has brought into the world. So as we celebrate all the joy that is coming, we remember the forces of hate are making a lot of noise right now, but don't be fooled. They are a shrinking force whose days are numbered. Every day, the number of people standing up to them is growing, as more and more people fight for the belief that a world where trans people are accepted and celebrated will be better for trans and cis people alike. Never forget, we're going to win this fight, and let that knowledge fill you with the bravery to continue it and with the joy to celebrate all that we've already won. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. We're funny. I might be funny looking, but I promise I'm funny. I'm joyful too. Yeah, sometimes. It just depends. So I wanted to thank Lana, Sean, Nico, and Amy for coming and sharing with us tonight. I wanted to thank our committee again, Randy, Michael, Gage, Kara, Andy, Bobby Brooke, Melinda, Haley, and River. I also wanted to thank DATV and the volunteers for coming here and broadcasting this tonight. I wanted to thank our sponsors, Sinclair College Diversity Office, Bright Signal Alliance, Premier Health, the Ruby Girls, Out Here Dayton Film Festival, Synchrony, the Dayton P Flag, Have a Gay Day, the Greater Dayton LGBT Center, and the Gatlin Dame Group. And of course, I wanted to thank all of you for coming. Whether you're in their community or whether you're an ally, you absolutely matter. And if you don't understand that now from just the speakers alone, come see me afterwards. I'll tell you all about it. I do. I want you to thank you all for coming and being brave and attending attending our 2023 Transgender Day of Remembrance. There's some light refreshments, and of course, we can have social time now. So if anybody wants to talk to me, come on over. I'm available. And I really hope that you guys all enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much. Oh, Kara's coming to talk. Kara?
Hey, I just want to say thank you to Devin for being our MC. Thank you. You're the best. All of you, remember, celebrate, be kind, and please get home safely. Thank you for coming.